Hello and welcome to Real Parenting for the Sensitive Mom, the podcast for moms who feel everything and still show up. You're the mom who cries during commercials, overthinks bedtime routines, and feels literally everything your kids feel. Welcome, you found your people. I'm Adrienne Bishop, your co-host and parenting coach.
And I'm Leah Andrioni, your co-host and family therapist. Today, we are diving into self-care for sensitive moms.
Oh boy, this is going to be a lot, huh? Like it's such a big topic, and we've said to do one podcast on it. So we'll see how much we can fit in because there's so much here. It's going to be a lot. So I know that self-care is such a buzzword and everybody is supposed to be doing it. And it's something that we need to feel like we need to add to our to-do list, right? One more thing that we have to do, which is kind of the opposite of how you and I think about self-care, right? So I think it's good that we're talking about it in a way that is more doable. And I pretty much need to take care of myself as a sensitive mom. Like my body tells me when to stop, and I can't push through things because of just how I'm built. And some people can. Some people don't recognize their feelings. They don't recognize what's going on for them. And so then they don't recognize they need self-care. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about today.
Yeah. And the goal of this podcast is not to have to add more things to your to-do list. We don't want to overwhelm the moms anymore. It's more about refocusing priorities, becoming more aware of your needs and then attuning to them so that all of these practices become more natural and they just flow and they become part of how we operate in the world. So the ultimate goal is learning, how do I curate a lifestyle so I don't burn myself? And I'm wondering, Adrienne, have you needed to incorporate these things? And what does that really look like for you so you're not burning yourself out?
Yeah. So as we were talking earlier, I have had sort of this long process of figuring out that this works for me. I need to do this to feel, not overwhelmed, not anxious. I did go through a long period of anxiety, very high anxiety, including chronic pain. And the chronic pain was emotional based. So I had to figure out how to process what I was feeling so that that didn't end up happening again. So I didn't get chronic pain again as a result of me just repressing how I felt. And I have this natural tendency to resist how I'm feeling. Like I actually my brain says, oh, I shouldn't feel that way. That's not okay. I should be grateful. So I have all these, self-talk that tells me that feeling a certain way is not okay. So I had to relearn how to approach my feelings. And so when I started to be able to do that, then I got tools like this took some time to figure out which worked for me, what didn't work for me. I got some tools from coaching, some tools from therapy, some tools becoming a coach, being a hypnotist, also going through the chronic pain healing situation. I actually use all of them today. And I use them in a way that helps me prevent getting to burnout and prevent getting to the place where at a low point or I'm super overwhelmed. And it doesn't work 100% of the time, but it works a lot better than I used to operate. But now I'm curious for you, how has your journey been?
Yeah, just like any other mom, I'm still on my journey, raising the kids, having a husband, having a business. It was really easy for me to hit burnout, and I did. And that's when I learned I have to really slow down. And within that slowing down process, it's really putting, we'll talk about this later, but the boundaries around my schedule. I can't have a packed schedule 7 days of the week. It's not going to work. I'm going to have to incorporate the things that I'm going to be talking about, especially the movement, especially making sure I eat enough. As a busy mom, I talk to them all the time. We're not eating enough, as moms or even as women. Right. And I'm so surprised when my clients are like, hey, I found out I'm not eating enough. I'm like, I know. And the food brings us the energy. Moving brings us energy, right? Even slowing down provides us energy. So I had to learn in my lifestyle, what is that going to look like? Learning that when you're on vacation, you should really actually be on vacation, as I do this from the beach because it's so fun. But it's also engaging in fun activities. But it took a while to learn that and cultivate that and really practice it daily, right? Like you said, no one's perfect. We're not going to do this 100%, but taking these bite-sized pieces and being able to incorporate it.
So you talk about, you're going to talk about in this episode, sensory-friendly practices, which I think are super important for us sensitive moms. Like if you identify as highly sensitive, you're going to have heightened sensory challenges. Like for me, there's so many, everybody's different, right? But the physical senses, the light, the sound, the kids just making so much noise all the time. Another one for me though is the clutter. Like seeing the clutter, seeing the, you know, the little tiny Legos everywhere. Every single place you go or anything you do, and there's some sensory overload. So I think these are going to be really good for a lot of the moms today that are listening. So if you want to start with those, I think that would be great.
So like you said, creating calming spaces, more calming. So a clutter, because it can be very overstimulating and really increase anxiety by a lot if we're seeing clutter, because our environment dictates how we feel internally. And if there's mess around us, we're going to feel like a mess. We're going to feel more scattered. It's going to be too much to look at, too much to walk over. So if you can take just 5 minutes and clear off some clutter, or somehow get the kids to help clear off some of their toys, their stuff, you will actually feel a noticeable difference in your body. But also within the calming spaces, focusing on senses, like your sense of smell, and having scents like lavender and rose, which can be very calming, having candle, having incense, as long as it's not too potent to increase it. It can, the sense of smell is very powerful when we want to calm down. And a lot of times I talk to my moms, when you're really, really overstimulated by everything, if you can put yourself in a lower lit room, even sitting in a dark room, you know, when you're so overstimulated, you feel like you want to be in a black hole, put yourself in that black hole to a point where you can go and have the lights off. You can put in noise canceling headphones. You can, you know, put on an eye mask, even for 5 minutes, take some deep breaths, have no stimulation. You will be able to decrease the anxiety and the overstimulation. Something I say, even for my mom, especially with the kids, you know, with kids, we always focus on calming corners with all their squishies and their soft blankets. You know, have one for yourself if you need it.
Yeah.
That's okay. However we help our kids, we still benefit from that. But I think also within that, it's going to places, usually in nature, that can help ground us, right? Take your shoes off, go outside, go by water. Water is extremely calming for us. We are a part of the earth, and putting our feet in the ground, we really soak up the energy from the earth. Even 5 to 15 minutes can have a very grounding effect. And like I said, we want to do this in bite-sized pieces. Yeah. So if you're taking your kids outside, go out without your shoes.
Yeah, I love that. And like actually with the hypnosis, and this is probably not just hypnosis-based tool, but you can imagine yourself in, I call it like your peaceful place. Like what's your most happy, peaceful place? And usually what it is, it's something in nature for most people, or at the beach, like something that makes you feel really good. You can go back to that space in your mind, even if you can't get outside, you can just go there mentally, and it still does have a calming effect.
Absolutely. And when you're in the earth, when you're outside, it is very grounding. So certain grounding rituals, including the deep breathing. And I do this a lot with nursing moms or moms that are nap trapped. You know, put down the phone, even for 5 minutes, practice your deep breathing, then practice going to your favorite place in your mind, because you're there. You're not supposed to do anything at that time in your life. You're supposed to focus on baby. You're supposed to not think about everything else, which is still impossible. But take the 5 minutes, take the 10 minutes, sit there, breathe, really feel and soak in the smell of your baby, which is also using your sense of smell. And it's very grounding. It's going to increase your oxytocin, the love hormone, and that's going to make you feel really regulated. If you don't have the baby, you can take a warm bath. I know, a culture, it's like, hey, self-care, take a warm bath. You can really take a cold shower, because the cold is really regulating to the nervous system. So it's 30 seconds at the end of your shower, turn on the cold water.
That's cool.
And then I don't like the cold, but it's like a shock to my system. So it's cold, it regulates the nervous system. And then when you get out, you put on a warm towel, and it's very comforting.
I love that. That's really cool. Yeah. And you are going to be talking about this in a couple minutes, but when you talk about doing a deep breathing practice when you're nursing, if you do have your phone, sometimes you can put on that calming music, because that helps me focus. It helps me not feel bored. So if you put on some meditation music and you do some breathing, it might be more fun in a way, like a little bit easier to do.
Yeah. And they're also including the sense sense of hearing,
Mhm.
which is when you're focusing on your senses, you're really in the moment because you're focusing on your body, right? And I
Yes.
know a lot as mom and women, we tend to dissociate from our body a lot. It
Mhm.
hasn't always been our friend. Society doesn't tell us to really love ourselves. But if we can come back to our body, come back to the safe space we're in that moment, such as nursing your baby, being able to use all your senses as much as you can, it's very grounding. Like you said, practicing meditation or that mindfulness in that moment, such as using 4-7-8 breathing, where you're breathing in for 4, hold it for about 6 or 7, and then breathing out for 8,
Yeah.
which you have to breathe out longer to
Yep.
get the calming response, or the box breathing. A lot of my clients really like the box breathing. And I know you said in hypnosis that box breathing is used a
Yeah.
lot.
We do the 4-7-8 too. It's about the
Okay.
double exhale. Yeah. The
Yes,
double time exhale because that's what engages the vagus nerve. So, yep.
absolutely. And I teach my clients an acronym BITE. It's breathing in for a count of 4. The I is imagining, like you said, a safe space, a calming space in your mind. And then the T is thinking of a positive affirmation like, I am safe. I am here.
Love it.
I am okay. And then exhaling for that 8. So within that 7-second period, you're imagining a safe space and you're thinking of a positive affirmation. And if you do that several times a day, it only takes 2 seconds, a minute maybe, and then you're able to gradually increase your times, increase the frequency of feeling grounded throughout the
Yeah, it
day.
doesn't take very long. I agree with you. So I think that's a
Mm-mm.
beautiful one. So we talked about, you and I, about how self-care can be about processing feelings, and that's how I
Yes.
approach it. So
Yeah.
first you have to be aware that you have the feeling, and then you have to learn how to process it. But once you're able to do that,
Yes.
you're going to see that you feel very, very different because the stress isn't going
Mm-hmm.
to compound upon itself, and you're not going to get to a place in the day where you're just overdone. You're just done. Your stress has got too
Mm-hmm.
high, you get irritated or you yell or you get angry. So the whole idea is that especially with the tools that I learned for hypnosis, is that when you're trying to process a feeling or become aware of a feeling, I'll give you
Mm-hmm.
my process for that because it's very simple and you can do it while you're nursing. You can do it while you're doing anything.
Yep.
So all you do is you go, and this is sometimes very difficult for people, but you go into your body as opposed to what
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking. You kind of tap into
Mm-hmm.
how your body is feeling and you work to find any sensations that you have. So let's say you're anxious, but maybe you
Mm-hmm.
don't know you're anxious, but you're feeling something off and you go into your
Mm-hmm.
body and you find the place where you're having those sensations. So for me, anxiety tends to be in the back of my shoulders. So I imagine I kind of focus on that part of my body. And then what you do is you create a metaphor or an image for that sensation. So for me, I usually go to a metaphor of a rope with knots. So a knotted rope.
Oh, yeah.
That's how anxiety feels to me. So some people might feel that it's like a spinning top, or there could be another image that you could come up with that gives you like a tight ball tends like a fist in a ball can feel like
Mm-hmm.
anxiety. So there's a lot of different things. And so what you do is you don't even have to close your eyes. You just focus on that metaphor. Imagine that rope with the knots in your back and your shoulders. And then you change that image. So my change to the rope with the knots would be to untie the knots. So then I untie the knots. So that is what you can do throughout the day if you're feeling some sort of, off. Like usually when you're feeling something kind of, intensely, you're going to notice it. Like if you're feeling really, really irritated or really, really overwhelmed, stop for a second and just tap into your
Right.
body. And even if you don't do the full process of changing that image and you just identify, oh my gosh, there's overwhelm and it's in my stomach
Mm-hmm.
and it's in my chest and it feels like a crushing anvil. You could even just get to that point where you can identify the feeling or identify the sensation. You're going
Right.
to be way, way far ahead of most people in the world. And you'll be
Right.
able to take the next step at some point and go farther into processing what you're feeling at some point.
Yeah, it's taking that pause. It's noticing something's a little off. Oh my goodness, I'm so irritable. Or, hey, I'm getting close to mom rage. There's something going on. I'm going to pause, figure out where it is in my body, and then I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do? So one of these tools here, like you said, the first step is just recognizing it and maybe
Mhm.
labeling it and
Right.
noticing the rope, noticing the anvil. Where is it? How is it? And how am I going to learn to release it. And hopefully it's getting to the point where you use these tips and tricks and outlets to prevent us from getting to that point 80-90% of the time. We're never going to be 100%.
Yeah.
But if we can just increase it.
And that's very preventative. If you're able to tap into the awareness around the feelings, you're going to have a lot less of that, extreme anxiety, overwhelm, something is, anger. You're going to have a lot less of those intense feelings. You're going to be able to manage a little bit more of the burnout. So I think it's helpful to prevent getting there.
And to actually help really label the feelings, you need that pause. And sometimes in that pause, you can actually, if you have long enough, write down whether you're keeping a journal in your phone or you're handwriting it or you're taking time, in the middle of the day or at the end of the day, just kind of writing down some of the words that came up, some of the feelings that came up when you were able to pause. Because when you're writing it down, you're releasing it.
Yeah.
It's a release.
Yeah.
And you're learning where it is in your body. And you're like, I was stressed. It was in my chest. It felt like a knot. It felt like butterflies. It was the anvil. It was heavy. It was a rock. Being able to notice it and write it down, then you're able to make it more real and solid. And that way you're going to be able to take another action that's going to support yourself in that moment or even next time. I even tell my clients, especially ones that may be a little bit more artistic, it doesn't have to be writing in the journal. It could be doodling. Maybe you draw a picture of the rope. Maybe you draw a picture of the anvil or the butterflies or the rock. You're still making those sensations, bringing it into your awareness, which is helpful. And what I do, and I know you have a little bit different take on this, but if you need a social media news detox, I tell my clients, take it. Take it for a day. Take it for as long as you need to, because the anxiety for a lot of people can be very debilitating. Sometimes it's okay to not take in more information because it's stimulating, right? Sight is also a sense that can be overstimulating, and reading and taking in news and information can be very overstimulating. So if you need to take a small detox, take it, and then you can always come back to it in smaller pieces.
Yeah. And I was telling Leah that my approach in the past was to avoid news completely. And that is not something that I recommend in the sense of, that's just all you do. But I do think that the break is a really helpful tool. And I think for me and for sensitive people, it tends to be, I just want to avoid feeling whatever I'm feeling, discomfort or sadness or anger. And so I want to encourage you that if you completely avoid the news on a regular basis because it makes you feel not great, I would encourage you to give it a try to slowly kind of incorporate some of it into your day and then work on, some of the tools that we give you to kind of process what you're feeling and be able to learn how to be uncomfortable and tolerate some of those feelings. We don't want to always avoid everything that's difficult, even though it feels easier that way. It's not really a long-term tactic that I would recommend, especially since I know that as sensitive people, we're much more in tune to, social justice and injustice. And I think that in reality, we might be the kind of people or the group of people that are going to be advocates. And I think we need to make sure that we don't neglect that part of who we are. And, I'm generalizing, but I have read a lot about injustice sensitivity as a real thing, especially for sensitive people. So I recommend, tolerating it as you can, because it moves you into action, and then you're able to, support others around you if that's what you want in your life. So yeah. So that's what I recommend. But if you get overwhelmed or you're getting to the point where there's dysfunction or you're not able to do things, 100% take that break.
And along with that, especially the advocacy piece is along with taking care of ourselves, socialization can be a big piece of that, and making sure that you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people, other highly sensitive people, because they're going to really understand you.
I 100% agree with that. When I found more friends that were sensitive, it was like all of a sudden everything made sense in my world,
Yes, because that socialization is so important for everybody. We'll talk about this later, but the introvert, even an extrovert thrives on it. But even the introvert needs some socialization throughout the day. We need that sense of belonging. We need the connectedness. We need to know that there's other people out there that think similarly to us, and we need to feel like we're not alone.
And the idea of having someone you can talk to about what's bothering you, or if you need to vent. I mean, just even having somebody that you can do that with. I have a friend that I go for a walk with almost every day, and we just vent. And I mean, I feel so much better after doing those things, you know? So I think connection is such an important piece of the self-care puzzle.
It really is. It really is. And also within that, it's respecting your boundaries of being able to say no also. If people are like, hey, let's go do this. Let's go do this. Let's get the kids together. How about you free this time? And you're already feeling overwhelmed. It's all right to say no. You need to say no. Yeah. You have to protect your energy, your space.
Yeah. It's interesting because I watch my kids. My goal is to help my kids be self-aware. That's one of my number one goals. And I think also they're naturally like that, like me. They can't not pay attention to what's going on in their body. But my son, my middle son, he literally this weekend, we did tons of social stuff on Saturday all the way through. Sunday morning, we also did something social. And by Sunday afternoon, he was like, I need to be alone in my house right now. Like he was like, just so done. He couldn't tolerate anything else. And he was able to tell us that and express it, but like in a, you know, in a really healthy way. And I know that that's exactly what he needs. And he's now able to express that to himself, and he's able to identify that that's what he needs. And I think kids are actually pretty good at telling you like their boundaries. It's really interesting. Like naturally people will, as you know, as you don't have conditioning telling you that it's not okay to say no. When you don't have that conditioning, kids are like totally fine with, you know, telling you they're done, or they don't want to do that, or they don't feel good.
Yeah.
You know, so use them as a model if you feel like your kids are good at that.
Yes. Use them as a model. And then you also want to role model what you want them to say and what you want them to do. So if you're able to say, no, I can't do that now, you're teaching them saying no is okay.
Exactly.
So you're learning from them and they're learning from you. Right?
I love that.
Within that. So also with the boundaries and saying no, it's really, really what I had to learn was taking care of my schedule. I am a person that does need some alone time to really recharge and, you know, really take away all the stimulating factors in my life. And an overloaded schedule is too overstimulating, especially if I'm bouncing from work to home and then back to work. Shifting like that doesn't really work very well for my brain. I have to do the work, kind of concentrate on one section. And then when I'm home, I need to be home because that back and forth was too overstimulating. So I need to really chunk my time and keep a schedule that's going to benefit me and my family. I try not to go back to work. Like I won't see clients in the evenings because I'm at home.
Right? I agree with that.
So I'll have events that I go to in the evenings for work, but I've learned I can't do that every single night. So I have to work on my schedule. I have to have that alone time. And then within that alone time is when I'm hopefully maybe going to the gym or I'm going for that walk, but it needs to be by myself, listening to a podcast that I want to, listening to the music that I want to, and not having anyone need or ask anything from me.
And you did sort of touch on this, but I've done some research and study into introversion and extroversion, two different sides of things. And most people are, it's on a spectrum, right? So you're not going to be most people aren't going to be full introvert, full extrovert. Correct. But what it is that introverts get energy from being alone and extroverts get energy from people, from being with people. Yes. The difference is that introverts are not social, not social. They are social creatures. Everyone is. So introverts just need to, usually they tend to be more, get energy from people they know that are close friends or close family. So introverts love being with close friends and close family. So they'll socialize with them all the time. And then extroverts are the type of people that will go to a party and get energy, or, with people they don't know, and they'll be happy to talk to strangers left and right, and they'll get tons of energy from that. So if either of those resonate with you, you're going to want to focus on making sure that you plan those sorts of events. Like if you're an introvert, that needs time alone and time with family and close friends, you're going to want to plan that every single, I don't know, maybe week or day. Like every day you have time alone, and then every week you plan an event with a friend or a family member. So you can get that energy from those places. And then the extrovert, you're going to want to make sure that you're planning in connection with people, or planning in like a meeting strangers or meeting new people, so that you can get your energy from that and not being home as much as some people need to be. But it's the same thing with kids. So you're going to want to look at your kids and kind of determine their need for downtime versus people time. And again, it's a balance, but it definitely helps with mood, and every sort of overwhelm that you get can be influenced by how much you have downtime versus not, and how much you balance those two things.
That balance is key. It really is key, because I know for myself, if I'm hanging out with really close colleagues, have really fulfilling, deeper conversations, it's going to give me energy for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Versus if I'm going to a networking piece where I'm not around people that I really know, it will be more draining. And then if I have a lot of family time, depending on what we're doing, that could be draining if I'm trying to, as a sensitive person, trying to manage everyone's emotions to a point, then that's going to be really draining. Versus being able to sit and, watch something with family, or just enjoy time outside with family, that's going to be more energizing and it's going to be more fulfilling. So it's also depending who and when and what you're doing in that balance to really find out what's helpful.
Yeah, just determine, like, it takes a little bit of experimenting, but really, really be honest with yourself. Like, did that drain me? Like, what is draining me, or what is giving me energy? And really think about it. And then be intentional about planning those things, because in reality, we're going to probably do social events, right? So just make it catered to what works for you.
Yes, yes. And I think you said it's the intention. We have to get intentional with our schedule. We have to get intentional of where we're putting our energy, because some days we're not going to have as much as other days.
Right.
And if we can cultivate our lifestyle in intentional ways, we're going to be able to feel a little bit more balanced. We're going to be able to feel a little bit more fulfilled.
Yeah, it feels like control almost a little bit. You have more control over it. And that also feels really, really good for your, burnout energy level. Is to not feel like everything's just happening to you.
Yeah. And that's where the boundaries come in. We have to be able to say, no, I can't do that, or all right, I'm in. So that's really important.
Love it.
So that's also comes down to physical self-care. It's being able to, with the boundaries, what is a priority? Rest needs to be a priority. And in the culture of productivity and achievement, you just got to keep going, because that's what's rewarded. It doesn't work. We're finding that it doesn't work. The rest as a priority, as I tell most of my clients, resting is a verb. You're still doing. We have to redefine how we see productivity, because it's going to look different for everybody. So it's that intentionality of, I'm going to rest now so I can go out with my friends. I can be the mom that I want to be. And that rest can look like a slow, gentle walk. It's not necessarily sitting on the couch doing nothing. It can be creative rest. So that's where we can tap into our creativity. And some people say they're not very creative, but I would beg to differ. It's engaging in the creative outlet, such as doodling in your journal. Writing can be creative. Anything with your hands, listening to music, being able to intentionally music or writing or drawing into your day. You take that time to rest, get in touch with that creative piece, you're going to feel more fulfilled, and you're going to feel more relaxed.
You know what I do? Because I am not a super creative person when it comes to like art or writing, or I'm a musician, but what I typically do if I want to kind of branch out from music is that I'll do one of those how to draws on YouTube. So they basically show you, how to draw something, and you just feel like less overwhelmed by the prospect of drawing or creating something. And I do this with my kids. I think it's really nice to have like just like a little group thing where you're kind of doing it all together and you're silently kind of meditating with the art, but you don't have to think about, what am I drawing? What am I doing? What color am I doing? What, so I think think it's helpful to just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
if that's what you need to do, you don't have to figure it all out on your own. Like there's lots of resources that you can
Mm-hmm.
tap into to kind of help support you in making it easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, YouTube is fantastic. I also love a good paint by number because it tells
Mm,
me what color, where am I going to put it. And then at the end, you have this beautiful picture that I never would have done on my
I
own.
love that.
And I didn't have to think about it. I
Yes.
just had to follow it. So I really enjoy those. They even have color by number coloring books for adults where
Nice.
they tell you the color to put in. So, the adult coloring books can be overwhelming for all, but also it brings in that mindful piece, that
Yes.
slightly, like you said, slow, meditative time to where you're relaxing and you're still doing something for
Hmm.
that person that always feels that they need to be doing something. And a lot of my clients do love reading
Reading is
and
great.
trying to get that, specifically before bed. So you're not on your phone. Take that away because that's still overstimulating. But reading a good book, as long as it's not going to promote strong emotions before bed, because you still want to be able to sleep. That's
Love
always a
it.
caveat.
Yeah, I'm always like, just something
Yes.
easy, something stress free.
Yes. And then also that physical self care within that rest, moving, you have to move. I
Yes.
don't say exercise, you just have to move. It's
Hmm.
very, very nourishing to stretch if that's all you can do. A leisurely walk, it doesn't have to, be running a marathon, but it's just being able to move, stretch, get the blood flowing. It regulates your nervous system.
Yeah, do whatever works for you.
Right. And then even 10, 15 minutes, it doesn't need to be an hour. It doesn't even need to be a whole half hour to start.
Yeah.
You just want to get out there. And then moving, and also with socialization, it's having dance parties with your kids.
Hmm.
And you can add that in. I always say probably around dinner time, especially little kids get to be really dysregulated. The witching hours start, you're trying to do dinner, put on music and they can dance, you can dance,
Yeah.
and you're increasing oxytocin, which is the love hormone. You're getting the endorphins, which is a pain reliever, and you're moving.
I'm always all about the
So you're getting it
oxytocin and the
right.
the endorphins because dopamine is so fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like anything that gives you
Yes.
oxytocins or endorphins, we're doing it. Like my
Mm-hmm.
favorite is snuggling with my husband, like just laying on him. I can
Mm-hmm.
feel the oxytocin like just pumping through my
Yes.
body, or even just giving
Oh,
somebody a
yeah.
hug for like what does it have
Yep.
to be? Does it have to be 30 seconds? I think it's
20s,
20. Okay.
20-second
Um,
hug. Yep.
20-second hug, it just
Mm-hmm.
really just resets you. It's just an amazing feeling.
It
So
does.
yeah, focusing on oxytocin,
Yep.
I think is a really good way to start to feel less stressed during the day.
Mm-hmm. And, like we said before, it's the boundaries. So, how do you implement boundaries if you have any good
Yeah.
tips that people could learn
Yeah.
from?
So I have a lot of support. And so I definitely am going to put that out there as a huge component in me being able to do
Mm-hmm.
self-care because my husband is very, I don't know, is active, I guess you could say. Like he's very on top of
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
I basically can say to him, like he does the dishes if I cook, he cleans up, he will step in and we trade off taking care of kids, we trade off driving kids, we trade off a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things. And so if I didn't have that, I probably would not be able to do what I do, to be completely honest. I also have
Mm-hmm.
my mom is very close, she's 10 minutes away, so I use my resources is what I
Okay.
do, and to be honest, I don't feel
Yeah.
guilty about pretty much any of it. Which again has taken time.
Good.
It has taken time to get to there, right? So like, but I know
Mm-hmm.
that if I'm able to use my resources and make my schedule, like you were saying, the way that I feel kind of benefits
Yep.
my needs, I'm just so much more of a happy person, which makes it so much easier for everybody in my family and just everything in our marriage is better. Everything's better if I do those things. So I'm a mover. I move every single day for at least half hour to 45 minutes every day, depending on what that looks like. I also am one of those people that can't be hungry. Like I feel hunger like it's pain,
Oh, yeah.
which is hypointeroception is the sense. So I have very hyper interoception. So it basically, I have to take care of that. Like food is number one.
Okay.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
number one along with movement for me. So I have to make sure that I have good food. Like the more I can like take care of that and make sure I'm eating the way that works with my body, which is, again, taken me a while to figure out, the better I feel, the end with that. And to be honest, I've gotten it down to sort of a quick, it doesn't take a ton of time for me to plan meals or a ton of time for me to figure out what to eat, because I have over the years cultivated things that work and I just repeat them. Like I literally eat the same thing every day for breakfast, eat the same thing. And if I get tired, I go to one more thing that and switch it up. So those are kind of things that really help me with the boundaries, which is just like saying, like, if, as long as I can get my movement and my food and also my sleep, like I protect that it is a steel trap. Now that I have kids that are older, I can do it a lot more easily. I know when I had younger kids, it wasn't as simple. But if I did have younger kids, I would try to fit in a 20-minute nap. But now what I do is, like, I know my kids like to talk at night. We prioritize getting them in bed at, 10 at the latest. And then we are just in bed, done. So I prioritize my sleep. I stopped exercising early in the morning because I needed that extra sleep in perimenopause. So I just gave it to myself. Yeah. But that means I have to rework schedule. So I'm lucky that I can do that. I have a flexible schedule because I own my own business. So owning my own business actually is self-care for me, because it kind of works with my emotional ups and downs during the day. And to have a 9 to 5 is just not something that feels good to me. So I think it's like, not everybody can do those things, right? So I do recognize that there is a little bit of the privilege that I have to be able to do those things, but I didn't always do them, even when I did have the opportunities. And so just kind of recognizing, for me, this is what works for me, and experimenting and just really just believing that it was really, really something that was worth spending the time figuring out. And then I do therapy. I do a lot of my exercises throughout the day. I do a lot of the grounding techniques that you talk about. I do all those things as part of my if I recognize that I'm feeling some way, I immediately go into a tool. But again, that takes practice, but it really makes a huge difference. So
yeah. So my self-care has really kind of evolved over the last year, where I've been really, really intentional with my scheduling, making sure I'm getting in, making sure I'm getting in the family time, making sure I am eating as much as I'm supposed to. So that is super important also. And with those intentions, I've been able to slow down, like I said before, which was really hard, and incorporating pretty much all of the tips and tools that we talked about today. But I just want to reiterate that it's really figuring out what works best for you, taking tiny steps, and incorporating what's already in your daily schedule. It's not to add anything else in. It's really to add the tiny pieces and getting the intentions in there, setting the boundaries, and working what works for you. So, but I wanted to thank everyone for listening today. And we hope to see everybody in 2 weeks when our next episode drops. In the meantime, you can find Adrienne and I on social media. My social media is at Leah Andrioni on Instagram, and Adrienne is at Adrienne Bishop Coaching on Instagram. And we hope to see you soon.